Hey guys, it is Wednesday afternoon and I have spent the morning grading your session 2 work. I'm not going to do a big feedback video or a massive feedback email today because you guys knocked it out of the park. I'm super proud of what y'all have done for session 2. So keep it up. That's all I have to say. Y'all are awesome. I'm going to jump right into session 3, just kind of review some things for you for session 3. So keep in mind, we're going to do session 2 just like we did session 3, which is there's 5 items that you have to do. So we have 2 topics for session 3. One is social structure and social interaction, and then the other is deviance and social control. So for these 2 topics, you will do a textbook reading and a journal for social structure and social interaction. You'll do a textbook reading and quiz thing and a journal for deviance and social control. So 2 textbook chapters and 2 journals. That's 4. And then the 5th item is the writing assignment, which is your choice of the 2 writing assignments that go along with the topics. So I'm just going to kind of jump in. I will say again, sometimes I realize that sociology is a little abstract and it's kind of out there. So I just want to review a little bit about each topic and hopefully kind of clear up some stuff for you. So I'll start with social structure and social interaction. All right, so just kind of a reminder what sociologists do. They study social life, society, how people act in society. So that's kind of where we're going here. And within the structure of society and how people interact, we're going to kind of focus again on that macro and that micro. So that really big thought process and then that really tiny individual thought process. So you'll see that when we talk about structural functionalism and conflict theory in sociology, we are talking about those macro big scale things. And then when we're talking about symbolic interactionism inside of sociology, we're talking about individual type things. So just kind of keep that in mind. So if we look at social structure, so the structure of society, we are looking at how we divide ourselves up. So we use culture to divide ourselves up or to label ourselves. We use social class, social status. We use groups that we're members of, the roles that we play, the social institutions that we're a part of. And so this whole like where we fit in the world and what groups we're a part of, that guides the way that we act. And so we are not only led to act a certain way, to talk a certain way, to believe certain things, but about ourselves when we're within these groups, but we're also led to have perceptions about other groups. We may find that human behavior is very much the same inside of one group, and all of these humans that kind of act similar in this group, they feel pretty much similar about the other group of humans that may be close by them. More on the social institutions, they help us kind of organize society as a whole. We organize ourselves in family units, in religion, in schools. So when you're thinking about social structure, just kind of think about the ways that we organize ourselves and the groups that we become a part of. And Structural functionalism kind of believes here that these social institutions, these groups that we're a part of, this structure of how we organize society, has to exist because it meets needs. But conflict theory, approach here kind of thinks that maybe it doesn't meet the needs, but it's just a way for the elites to kind of control those underneath them. And when we say elites, we talk about, these upper people of society. So this teeny tiny group of society at the very top 1% of the nation, and they hold like 90% of the money and 99% of the control. So remember, conflict theory is all about like fighting and a power struggle and all that kind of stuff. And then when we look at symbolic interactionism as far as social structure goes, remember we're going to look at very small scale, very face-to-face individual interactions. And we also will use like symbols. And so this really has a big thing to play in stereotypes. If we're talking about the way that we structure ourselves, we are looking at in the same group the way that we feel about each other, and making those assumptions based upon each individual. So you may make an assumption of an individual based upon the symbols that they wear on their clothes. So I'm totally out of touch, y'all. I don't get into the symbols. Y'all are probably more with it than I am. But do you look at the shoes and if they have the Nike check on them, or do they look like they just came from a big box store with they have no logo on them? Do you look at purses? And do you look for that, Gucci label or the Coach symbol? And do you make assumptions and stereotypes about people that have those things or don't have those things? So that's kind of how we do an individual looking at society and how we structure. So do you structure people in different categories based upon the items or the labels that they have on their clothes and their cars and that kind of thing? Do you say, yeah, they must not be very well-to-do, they must be broke, or do you say, oh, they must be very rich because they drive this car, because they carry this purse, or because they have these tennis shoes? So that's kind of the symbolic interactionism of structuring society. And remember, you'll read about it in your textbook, and you'll experience this in your journal, but Irving Goffman is a sociologist, and he talks about dramaturgy and how this impression management, we're all actors on this stage of life, and we are trying to get people to think about us in a certain way. And so it's almost like we're always putting on a show. Other sociologists kind of believe, people just define their own reality. There's not a really, for real reality. It's just sort of how you think others think about you. So that is a super quick way to outline social structure and social interaction. So structure is the entities that we group ourselves in, and then the interaction is how we treat each other based upon our groups. And then I'll jump right into deviance and social control. So deviance is what we might call troublemakers, but it essentially is just the violation of our society's rules or our society's norms. So one of the examples that I used in the journal is, it's perfectly acceptable for somebody to pitch a tent and sleep in a tent if they're in the woods or if they're in a campground. But when we see somebody pitch a tent in the middle of a city on a sidewalk and sleep in it, we label them deviant. Oh, they shouldn't be doing that because this isn't the area for camping and putting up a tent. And so that's kind of what we're talking about when we talk about norms. And you guys just turned in a journal about norms. And so hopefully this will be a little bit easier to understand because you've just reviewed norms. And these sort of deviant behaviors, these things that are, that's just not normal, vary across what society you live in, what country in the world you live in, what group you're a member of. Think about, the difference between shaking someone's hand or making eye contact with someone. That varies across the world, across cultures, across countries. And so shaking somebody's hand in the United States might not be deviant, but doing it in another country where you're not supposed to be shaking hands is very deviant. So again, that violation of what we perceive as normal is kind of where that's the best way for me to explain deviance to you. And if we look at society as a whole, you kind of have to figure out, well, we kind of sort of need some system to control people. Because if not, everybody just be running around doing what they wanted to do, and life might be crazy. And so society in general, as it evolved and got to where it is today, continued with this system of kind of how we make people act what we might call normal. And then we provide some sort of negative reaction to their not normal behavior. So symbolic interactionism is more like the thought process of people learning to be deviant based upon the people that they hang around with. Or they may also say they're deviant because of the system that they are a part of. And so it kind of labels them deviant based upon the people and the areas that they're a part of. So that symbolic interactionism, remember, is very individual-like. And then if we look at the structural functionalism part of deviance, they kind of say, well, deviance is functional for society. So it contributes to a social order of a labeling of good and bad, right and wrong. And then they also say it's a good function because it can create social change. And if you pay attention to anything in the news, you will see an example of deviance, which is creating social change. And then finally, conflict theory, as it relates to deviance and social control, is this power play, this struggle of the elites and those that are not, and how they impart their belief as far as making people behave. So that kind of comes into the play of utilizing the criminal justice system to keep people either behaving or put away when they are not behaving. So that those kinds of the conflict, meaning the struggle between the two groups. And I think that is a great way to kind of wrap it up. I know that was super quick, but feel free to reach out to me if you need more resources, and let me know if you have any questions on the assignments for session 3.